part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by to Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast. We're your host, John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. A very special guest here on this edition of our podcast. Any fans of Ohio State growing up, or even just younger and knowing the history of Buckeyes football in the state of Ohio, whether you live in Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, or all over the country in Buckeye Nation, knows this guest all too well. He's the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner, considered one of the greatest college football players of all time, won 4 Big Ten Conference titles with the Buckeyes, and was the first player ever to start in 4 Rose Bowls. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to welcome the great Archie Griffin to the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast. How you doing, Mr. Griffin?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. So
Fantastic.
it's hard to believe, but you played your last snap 47 years ago. And when I was going over my questions, and I thought of 47 years ago, and here in my basement, you can see I have a whole bunch of stuff behind me. And it's almost been 30 years since I played college baseball, and that's crazy. Does it feel that long to you? What's your perception of time since your playing days?
Well, Scott, I got to tell you, it really does not feel that long. I mean, I sit around and I marvel all the time about how long it's been since I played at Ohio State University, or even since I played with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it is just incredible, the time and how fast the time has passed. So no, it really doesn't seem that long ago. But the fact of the matter, it has been, and I'm enjoying watching the game, and I'm enjoying what the Buckeyes are doing right now. And it's been a lot of fun being a fan.
Archie, for fans that may not know, what are you up to these days?
Well, I've retired from the Ohio State University after about 34 years of working at the university, and I worked about 20 or so years in athletics, and another 12 years as president and CEO of the Alumni Association, and another couple years part-time in development. So I've had 34 years, but I've retired. Now I'm doing a lot of board work. I sit on the Incoba Insurance board, also the Ohio Auto Club board, and I sit on several charitable boards. So those are the things that really, really keep me busy right now, as well as playing a lot of golf.
Well, hopefully for your sake, Scott can work his weather magic and keep some of this cold air at bay, so you can get some more rounds in before the snow starts flying.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, that would be nice, Scott. If you could take care of that, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not been good the last week and a half, that's for sure.
I know it hadn't.
So, Archie, you're still living in Columbus then?
I do live in Columbus, but I spend the winter in Florida, the Sarasota, Bradenton area in Florida. So I do get away during the wintertime.
Looks like they're going to get hit too with that hurricane too later.
Yeah,
later
they are.
Tomorrow.
They are. It looks like. I know my wife's been keeping close touch with our neighbors out there, and making sure that we've got everything buttoned down. And so hopefully, things won't be as bad as they look.
I lived down in Tampa for 8.5 years and just moved back to the Cleveland area in February. And the whole Tampa Bay area down there, and even far south in Sarasota, Bradenton, just absolutely beautiful, especially in the winter months when you leave the Ohio cold.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure does. And I look forward to getting down there and really playing a lot of golf there.
So, Archie, you're the only 2 Heisman Trophy winner. I know you get asked this all the time, how awesome that is. But are those 2 awards, would you consider that your greatest accomplishment in your entire football career?
As far as football is concerned, yeah, it's certainly a great accomplishment, individual. But one of the things I think you have to realize is that when you win a Heisman Trophy, you may get it as an individual, but you win it as a team. I count myself as very fortunate, having had the opportunity to play at the Ohio State University with the guys that I played with, because I feel like I was in the right place at the right time with the right people to make that happen. Again, you cannot accomplish a Heisman Trophy alone. You have to have a good team along with you to make that happen. And I had all of that. I think about my coaches. I think about the backfield that I was in with Pete Johnson, Brian Bash, Schmigel, Cornelius Green, and Champ Henson, and all those guys that I had the opportunity to play with. It made it all possible. No question about it.
Do you hope someone wins 2 Heismans one day? I mean, it's been a long time. Do you think it'll happen? Do you hope it happens?
People ask me that all the time. Do I think it'll happen? I personally think it will happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, certainly Bryce Young has a chance to do it this year. He's at Alabama, a great school that's got a great reputation, and he's the quarterback on that team. So, he's probably got a good shot at it. But I don't know if it'll happen. If it happens, I'm going to try to be the first to congratulate that person that does it. I look forward to seeing what happens this year, certainly with Bryce, as well as what's going to happen with our quarterback, CJ, who's having a fabulous season as well. So it's going to be really, really interesting.
More on CJ Stroud in just a moment, but I got to ask you, Archie, where are your 2 Heismans right now? And I know you won a pair of, I think they were at Silver Football Awards back in the day, as well as a bunch of other awards, National Player of the Year, and all that other great stuff. Where's your hardware at the moment?
Well, I have one of my Heisman trophies here at home, and the other one is at the university at the Ohio Union. The ballroom at the Ohio Student Union is named in my honor, and they have a display case, and I've displayed a lot of the awards that I've received in that display case, and one of my Heismans is one of those that's displayed at the Ohio Student Union.
Sure. So, and I asked this question for my brother because my brother is Jersey guy. He can tell you the differences between colors and stripes. I mean, from the NBA all the way down. So, okay. and we love, looking back at some of the stuff that we've collected over the years, from pennants to stuff. And so that leads me to my next question. Do you still own any of your game-worn jerseys?
I do not own any of my game-worn jerseys. I do not. I know that I've auctioned them off at some charitable Events in the past, and that's just one of the ways that I was able to pay forward, as my former coach Woody Hayes used to always say. No, I don't. Now that you mentioned that, I don't have any of my game-worn jerseys here at home that I can say that I actually wore them in a game. I really don't.
So my brother and I will never play at the Horseshoe. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Most people don't, but it's a very special place. Describe to us what it's like when you walk onto the field. And now, we're entering in the 100th season of the Horseshoe. Describe that feeling when you first walked onto the field.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is a fabulous place to play the game of football. I actually had been in the Horseshoe very early. I mean, I'm born and raised right here in Columbus, Ohio. Matter of fact, born at the Ohio State University Hospital. So the Horseshoe wasn't very, very far from me at any time. But when I was a kid, we used to always go to the Horseshoe to participate in the Junior Olympics, because at that time the Horseshoe had a track in it. And so I remember as a kid running track in the Horseshoe where Jesse Owens ran, and that was always a fun thing to do. But as a football player, running out of that tunnel down onto the field, you can't match that. I mean, that was unbelievable. And I certainly remember my freshman year, and back in 1972, doing that, and just being amazed at the crowd and how much attention the Ohio State University football team was receiving from that crowd, as far as the applause and the excitement that was going on in the stadium. There's nothing like that. That feeling is just absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome.
It is a beautiful venue. I love going there. I try to go down there once a year. I think I'm going to go to the Iowa game coming up here.
Okay.
We'll see if that kind of pans out on my end. I love going there. I've covered games as a member of the media. I've gone games as a fan. I'm trying to get my brother to come down. We're going to try to plan a trip next year. I just never get bored walking inside the shoe, especially. My favorite seats, by the way. I don't know, have you ever sat in, like, I know you're always in the suites and in the press box area, but have you ever actually sat in the stands for a game?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I certainly did. So when I was in high school and
Mm-hmm.
on visits during the football season, my senior year in high school, I certainly sat in the stands, and
Mm-hmm.
and even when I was in pro football, and I would come back for a game, or we have a buy or something that I was able to come on a Saturday afternoon to see a game. Yeah, I sat in the stands, and it was exciting sitting in the
Yeah.
stands. I mean, again, it was electric.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want as a football player on the field, for your fans to be excited about watching you, because that gives you that extra, in my opinion, advantage.
Yeah, I love sitting in the C deck right behind the right behind the goalposts on the dome side.
On the dome side, okay.
Yeah.
Well, some people, when you say C deck, they say, "Oh, that's way up there." But actually, those are seats that you have a great view when you sit there. I mean, I think those are excellent seats, to be honest with you, because of the view that you have of the field.
Yeah, the dome side in between the two pillars. 2016, I went down for the Michigan game and the double overtime game. We had the first row in the C deck, which is right above the scoreboard. My buddies and I went, and my wife went, and it was one of the greatest sporting events I've ever seen in person, and phenomenal seats for it too.
Wow, that's awesome. It was an awesome game too. So
absolutely,
you got to enjoy a great game.
We got that W and of course bragging rights. So Archie, to many, everyone claims and says, and I agree, you're the greatest Ohio State player of all time. When you hear that, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, it makes me proud to hear people say that, and I'm certainly proud and really appreciate the compliment. But you know what? There's so many great Ohio State players. I don't know how you can pick one that's the greatest. I mean, we've had some wonderful players to play at our university, and some guys that really have done an outstanding job, not only at the college level, but even at the pro level. So it's very difficult to pick one, but I greatly appreciate people who say that I have had that honor of being the greatest player. But again, believe me when I say this, and I'm very serious when I say this, you don't do it alone. And I was fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time with the right people to have the success that I enjoyed during my time at Ohio State. And I'll always say that because it's true. I mean, the game of football is a game that's played with 11 guys on the field at a time. One guy can do his job and do a great job at it, and he can be really, really good and not have a ton of success if he does not have the offensive line doing what they're supposed to do, or the quarterback doing what he's supposed to do. I had all of that happening for me, and I'm so very, very thankful for it. And that's why I say I'm honored to be considered one of the great players to play at Ohio State, because I had all of that going in my favor.
How was your relationship like with Woody Hayes? Tell us something about him that many people may not know.
I had a great relationship with Coach Woody Hayes. Coach Woody Hayes was a great football coach, but I always say that he was even a better person than he was a coach. And I say that because he was a man that cared a great deal about the players that he coached. He didn't only want us to be really good football players, but he wanted us to also get the education that we came to school to get. And he pushed that point with us all the time. But he also wanted us to be good citizens. He wanted us to be out in the communities, being involved, helping other people. He always talked about paying forward. He got it from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay on compensation, where it says you can never pay back the good that someone may have done for you, but you can always pay forward by helping someone else. And he preached that to us. And many a time he asked us to go out in the community to elementary and junior high schools and talk to kids about the importance of a college education. And I can remember times that he would drive us down in his El Camino We jump in the back of his El Camino that had AstroTurf in it. He'd take us down to Children's Hospital, and we'd visit with some of the kids in Children's Hospital. He had a concern about our community, and he wanted to make sure that his players were doing what they could do to help in the community. And I always appreciated that about him. Again, he was a great football coach, but he was even a better person than he was a coach because of the way that he cared about people.
The older we get, we always look back. And, I'm at that age too, where I start looking back. I know my brother the same. If you could write a letter to your 22-year-old self, what would it say?
Oh, what would it say? Well, I would have to say to my 22-year-old self is that, I'm glad to see that you learned a lot of things as you were coming up, and you applied those things to your life. Because when I think back over the years, I've been very, very fortunate to come across people that made a difference in my life. And when I say that, I think about my folks for sure, who gave all of us. I come from a large family. I've got six brothers and one sister. So we were 8 kids in our family. But our parents were the type that had goals for us. So they wanted us to get a college education. That was very, very important. And they also wanted us to participate in sports because of the lessons that you learn in sports. But I also had a guy in junior high school that made a huge, huge impression on me with 3 words. Those 3 words were desire, dedication, and determination. And he was an advisor for our student council. And I'll never forget him telling us in that student council meeting that if we use those 3 words, desire, dedication, and determination, then we can be successful in life. He said, desire, you have to want something out of life. Dedication must be committed to achieving that certain something. The determination of being willing to overcome the obstacles that might somehow get in your way. And I'll never forget that he told us if we use those 3 Ds, then we can have success in life. And I took that as a challenge. And so everything that I ever did, I tried to apply those 3 Ds to it. If it was my education, or getting the college education, or getting my college degree, I used those 3 Ds in the classroom. I used those 3 Ds when I played any sport, no matter what it was. I used those 3 Ds, and certainly in the jobs that I occupied, I used those 3 Ds there as well. And I have to say that I believe that he was right, because they helped me tremendously and helped me enjoy a lot of success. And I greatly appreciate that. And no question, I have to thank the good Lord up above for putting me in the situation that I've been in, because, again, I was at the right place at the right time with the right people in a lot of situations. And I greatly appreciate that.
Well said.
Yeah, John, real quick, the 3 Ds, that you mentioned too, that's great for especially, young athletes and young students, for anybody, but especially young athletes, because I think athletes, especially kids like my daughter, who's in 9th grade, and my son, who's a senior, that age in high school, when you start to get, physically, when you start to become, your potential starts going up, but then there's always that fear of failure that rides in the back of your head sometimes.
Mm-hmm,
and those
that's right.
Ds, really help, focus and give you that confidence.
Yeah, because really, and he told us this, when you apply those 3 Ds, what you've done is you've given a total commitment, and nobody can ask you to do anything more than to give a total commitment. When you know that you totally committed yourself to being the best you can be, or totally committed yourself in a situation, then there's nothing to be ashamed of, because you gave it your best shot. And that's all anybody can ask of anyone. And that's certainly helped me, because if I can say that I did the best I could do, I don't care how it looks on the outside, I can be okay with that, because I did my best.
It's a really good way of putting it, because that's something that you can apply, Archie, to life, obviously sports, but life in general. And I think kids these days need to hear that.
Yeah.
So when you
Absolutely.
go back, you mentioned Woody Hayes a little bit ago. I mean, you were part of that 10-year war. You know, what was it?
Absolutely.
What was it like being in that dynamic rivalry between Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler?
Oh, it was great because people talk about that 10-year rivalry and whatnot, but what they fail to realize sometimes is that Woody and Bo, I think, were best friends. I mean, they were friends. They were fierce competitors, but they were best friends. I mean, they were kind of like each other. I mean, they kind of came out of the same mold. Fierce competitors, good friends, but they did not want to lose to each other. And when it came time to playing that team up north, you knew that Woody Hayes wanted to win that football game. And one of the things that I could say that I'm most proud of in college football is that I never lost to that team up north, and that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And those teams that I played on at Ohio State, we never lost to that team up north. We had a tie one year, but we did not lose to them. And that's something that we all stick our chests out about.
You know, you mentioned your record 3-0-1. Not many people can say that, but how proud are you that you never lost to that team up north?
Oh, extremely proud. I mean, when you play that game, people, they don't ask you how you did against Indiana. They don't ask you how you did against Northwestern or quite frankly, any other schools in the Big Ten. They ask you how you did against Michigan. And when you can say that you never lost to them, you can be extremely proud of that. And I know all of the guys that I played with at Ohio State are extremely proud of that fact. And we have our gold pass to show it, and it's something that we'll always be proud of.
And we'll have more with Archie Griffin right after this.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it, Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
So you're an Ohio boy. You mentioned you're born and raised in Columbus. Mm-hmm. You're pretty much born on the campus. You attended OSU. Then you got drafted by the Bengals in '76. How pumped were you at the time that you got to stay in Ohio to play your NFL career?
That was really exciting, the fact that I got to stay in Ohio. I certainly wanted something like that to happen to me, that I would be able to stay in Ohio, to be able to play in front of some of the fans that I played in front of during my time at Ohio State and even during my time in high school football. So I was ecstatic about that opportunity to go to the Bengals and play. Absolutely.
How tough of an adjustment was it to go from the college game, even at the level of Ohio State, to the NFL?
Well, the adjustment for me was more going from a running game to a passing game, because certainly at Ohio State we ran with the football. I mean, that's what we were going to do. Coach Hayes believed that when you pass, three things can happen and two of them were bad, and so you were going to run the football. But when I got to Cincinnati, we had a passing offense. Kenny Anderson was our quarterback, a guy who I think should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he did a wonderful job passing to some great receivers. I think of Isaac Curtis, Chris Collinsworth, and some people like that he had the opportunity to throw to. And they were great receivers. And our game was a passing game. So I had to adjust from the running game to the passing game. I feel like I did a good job of adjusting to that, but it was different for me because we were predominantly a passing football team and not a running football team.
Did you feel pressure to produce for the Bengals because of your Buckeye success and what you did at the college level, Archie?
I feel pressure, but you know what? I probably put more pressure on myself than anyone else. And as a matter of fact, I went into the game saying that, I wanted to gain 1,000 yards a year. But I found out real quick that that was going to be very, very difficult to do because, you average 8 or 9 carries a game. You're not going to get 1,000 yards during the course of a season. So I adjusted my goals. Instead of trying to gain 1,000 yards a season, I wanted to average 5 yards a carry. Now, I didn't quite get 5 yards a carry, but I was over 4 yards carry. And I think any running back in the NFL will tell you if you can average over 4 yards a carry, then you can really feel good about what you've done.
What was it like playing with your brother Ray with the Bengals?
Well, I played with Ray, not only with the Bengals, but I played with Ray in college as well as in high school. So Ray and I were used to playing together. But it was great playing with Raymond. In high school, we were the backfield. I was a fullback, actually, and he was the tailback. But he also played defense. And then when we got to college, he came to Ohio State as a running back. So he was kind of playing behind me as well at running back. And then he switched after his freshman year to a defensive back, and he became a starter at the cornerback position or at the defensive back position, where he had a ton of success and then drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. And he had a lot of success at the Cincinnati Bengals, too. So it was great being able to play with your brother, because what it would do is it made it easy on the family. My mother and father didn't have to worry about going one place to see Ray play and then another place to see me play. That's one of the reasons I think you found that 3 of us, my brother Ray and brothers Ray and Duncan, all came to Ohio State during the time that I was at Ohio State, because it made it easier on our parents, so they didn't have to go to a lot of different places to see their kids play. As a matter of fact, when I was coming out of high school, I had a brother at Kent State and I had a brother at the University of Louisville. And I can remember driving in the afternoon, going to Kent State and watching my brother Daryl play, and then taking off after that game and driving all the way down to the University of Louisville and catching the second, third, and fourth quarter of my brother Larry playing at the University of Louisville. And, you didn't think about it at the time, but that had to be tough on the parents, because they wanted to see their kids play. Sure. And I can remember when I was being recruited at Ohio State, I was at one time leaning towards Northwestern because they were recruiting me very heavily. And I remember going on my official visit, and my dad, who worked 3 jobs, took off work, and he was going to take me to the airport to make that official visit to Northwestern. But I'll never forget, right before I got out of the car, he leaned over to me and he said, we'd like to be able to see you play. And when he said that, that made me think, what did he mean by that? And I knew exactly what he meant. He said, don't go too far. I mean, you still got a brother at Kent State, you still got a brother at University of Louisville, and it'll be very difficult for us to get to Chicago to see you play if you were to go there. And that told me that the place that I belonged was Ohio State University.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story. After 8 years, go ahead.
And that's why I believe to this day that Ray and Duncan both came to Ohio State when I was there, so they could watch all of us play all at the same time.
It's convenient. It's great. That doesn't happen very often for families, and it worked out for you guys. That is incredible.
It sure did. So, yeah. And it was a good result, and that makes it even better.
So after 8 years in the NFL, you retired, but before returning to Columbus, you ended up joining the Ohio State staff. At that moment, that was kind of cool to come back and be a part of what we're all kind of started for you.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, my first job at Ohio State, I was in HR. I worked in human resources and enjoyed that because really when I graduated from Ohio State, that was my area of study. But Rick Bay came to Ohio State as the athletic director, and he found out that I was working in HR, and he came to visit me, and he told me that that he'd like for me to come to work for him in the athletic department as a special assistant. And I thought about that, and I thought it was a great opportunity for me, and it was. And I took that opportunity. And again, I worked about 20 years in athletics for the Ohio State University in different positions, certainly as a special assistant, but then as assistant director of external affairs, and then assistant director over sports. And then I got hired by the Alumni Association to become their president and CEO. And I took that opportunity, which was a wonderful opportunity for me. I enjoyed that job. It was a great job. I had the opportunity to work with some great people, but most importantly, I had the opportunity to interact with our great alumni at the Ohio State University. And that was a lot of fun for me. And I retired from that job after about 12 or so years. Then I felt that was enough time, because I've always believed that you work in a job a certain number of years and you move on and let the next person come in and do their thing. And I did that, and I'm glad that I did it. Worked out great, and I'm enjoying retirement at this time.
So after your professional career was over, right? You played high school, you played college, you played in the pros, you played, all of your brothers. And so you came from an athletic family, all your brothers and brothers all over the place. When you were done playing, how did you fill the competitive void? We talk about Michael Jordan. He needs to be doing something after playing. He plays cards, he plays golf. How did you have that void that you needed to fill competitively?
Well, I always, one of my favorite sports is basketball. And we would all, when I was working in the athletic department, we would play pickup basketball games at noon in St. John Arena, or we would play softball. I just started taking up the game of golf, and I got occupied with that. So that was one way of doing it. But the golf was a game that I felt that, you play against yourself because, people are at different levels in golf all the time. You play with people at different levels. I mean, some guys with their handicaps are great, great golfers. And there are guys like me who just started, that just taking up the game, learning the game. And so I was not as good, but I enjoyed playing with those folks, especially because I was in athletics, I was in fundraising, I was mixing and mingling with people that loved the Ohio State University, and that was kind of part of the job, or goes along with the job. And it ended up being something that really, really occupied my time, and something that I got excited about, that I could look at sort of in a competitive manner. But the competition there was me competing against myself, trying to get better at the game. And that's what I'm still doing to this day. And I had some good days, but I also had some really, really bad days playing that game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Archie, we have a couple more questions for you, then we'll let you know. You've been very gracious with your time. The college game has changed quite a bit over the years since when you played in the 70s.
Absolutely.
Went from just, the polling to BCS, now to the playoff. And of course, for individual players, if they're fortunate enough to take advantage of it, is NIL. For a two-part question. One, are you in favor of NIL? And what are your thoughts about the playoff and, the soon future expansion?
Well, I am in favor of the NIL. I've been a proponent for players being able to benefit from their name, image, and likeness for a long, long time. I've always felt that we're in a time when coaches are making millions of dollars, and those players ought to be receiving more. Now, I am not totally crazy about how NIL has gone. I don't think they have their arms around it yet. I think they need to get their arms around it so that they can have some sort of control over it. And how they're going to do that, I don't know, because it's going to be tough to reel in what they've already let loose. But I am in favor of players receiving compensation for their name, image, and likeness. I think they should, and I'm glad to see that happening. And the other part of the question was, what was the other part of the question?
The playoff, college football playoff expanding.
Oh, I'm in favor of expansion of the college football playoff. I believe that if you have a very, very successful season, I mean, you can't do it like basketball, but if you, and I think they're moving moving to 12 teams or so in the college football playoff.
Yeah, expanding to 12 teams by 2026.
By 2026. Well, I'm in favor of that. I mean, I wouldn't have mind if they went to 16 teams, to be honest with you, because I believe that, if you have a successful season, you ought to get a chance to play for a national championship. I always think back to that team that was at Central Florida a few years ago, and they had an undefeated season, and they played some tough teams.
Yeah, and
they went undefeated, but they never got a shot to play for the national championship. And I just thought that that was a disservice to that football team. And to be honest with you, I was really happy to see them post a national championship banner up. I think they posted in their stadium saying that they won a national championship, because in their minds, they were national champions. They did not lose a football game, and they wanted to be seen as national champions. And I can understand that. But in that situation, if there was a playoff at that time, they would have had an opportunity to play for that national championship. Well, they didn't get that opportunity. So they did what they used to do in the old time, name themselves as national champions.
The old claimed national championships. Now, on the flip side, I got to say, I was down in Florida and I covered, working in Tampa, we didn't cover UCF, we covered USF, but I was kind of, immersed in that whole culture there of college football in the state of Florida, but also when UCF made that run and they had that Chick-fil-A win that put them undefeated. And it rubbed a lot of people wrong that they did the wrong way when they took that claimed title, even though the system didn't dictate that. My question though is, if you like that, could you say any other team could probably still put that claimed title if they went undefeated? Kind of like how Urban Meyer did with Ohio State his first year. They went undefeated, but they were, they couldn't go to a bowl game.
Right.
Ohio State could have done that, but they didn't.
No, they didn't, because at that time, there were reasons that they said that we couldn't do it.
Sure.
I mean, if we didn't have those things keeping us from doing it, then and we didn't get that opportunity. Yeah, I could see us doing that. Yes, absolutely.
All right, one last question, and we'll let you go, Mr. Griffin. TJ Stroud, all right? In your eyes, you've seen a lot of Ohio State. Where does he rank? I mean,
oh my God,
he's got to be up there. Where does he rank for you?
Well, he's got to be certainly. I mean, we've had some great quarterbacks, especially. I think of the quarterback we had, Cornelius Green. I always thought that he was a fabulous quarterback at Ohio State, but we weren't much of a passing team during that time. But recently, when you look at the quarterbacks that we've had, Justin Fields, and then you look at CJ, and you look at our quarterback that just was killed in a car accident, and Dwayne Haskins, and those guys were fabulous quarterbacks, and they all had great numbers, and you got to put CJ right up there with him. I mean, the jury's still out because he has another season, at least this season, to play. And but by the way he's going now, I'd have to rate him as certainly one of the very top ones.
And real quick, bonus question, real quick, Archie, what do you think happens the rest of the season? What's the end result for this 2022 Ohio State Buckeyes?
Well, my hope is that we can go through this season undefeated, and get a chance to play certainly in the Big Ten championship game, and then be successful there and make it to the college football playoff. And again, when you make it to the college football playoff, who knows what can happen? I think this team is talented enough to do all of that. And depending on how we continue to develop on defense, I think we'll be talented enough to possibly win a national championship.
Mr. Griffin, on behalf of all the Ohio State fans that are listening to this podcast and all the Ohio State fans here in Northern Ohio, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on our podcast. You were on our list, and we're glad we had the opportunity to talk with you now for, about 45 minutes to an hour. Best of luck with your golf game. Best of luck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I could use that. So.
Yeah. And hopefully everything works out with this hurricane down in Florida, too.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Well, you guys take care, and I've enjoyed chatting with you, and I wish all of you the best of luck as well.
Thank you so much, Archie. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Take care. God bless you.
Man, for a guy who is so accomplished on the field and made that transition off the field, you talk about a humble guy and always wanting to give back. I mean, just a fantastic individual, and he didn't have to give 50 minutes of his time. But it was great talking with him, talking the old school. And, the other thing too, John, is that he doesn't come across as, I call it get off my lawn guy. 'Cause some of the older players, you can kind of sense that they're a little bit resentful. Oh, back in he's not that guy.
No.
He has blended very well into the 2010s and 2020s way of talking about football and talking about sports. And I think that's extremely relatable to players nowadays.
And I think that's why players love talking to him. Scott, he just turned 68 in August. First off, we're on a Zoom when we do this interview with him. He doesn't look like he's 68.
No, not at all.
He looks so young. He's hip with the times in a lot of ways. And I think that you're right. That's why players, can relate to him. To me, Scott, a lot of his life messages that he had to speak of, take football out for a second, he reminded me a lot of Ted Ginn. Senior.
I was just thinking about that because we talked with him a little over a year ago, exactly like Ted Ginn. The 3 Ds. I wrote those down too because, man, there's some players that I know in high school that even for myself, I mean, look at the 3 Ds. But that's Ted Ginn. I'm glad you brought him up. In fact, I'm going to probably take a listen to our Ted Ginn podcast again and then kind of compare notes.
Yeah, and you know what? They're very similar in a lot of ways. They may have different points, but I think they come to a head and of the life lessons that come that people can take forth, and no matter their walk of life. We didn't go into the numbers game with him and stats because that can kind of get boring.
Right, sure.
I mean, he went 40-5 in one tie in his time at Ohio State, almost 5,600 rushing yards in his 4 years there. I mean,
crazy. That
is just mind-boggling. Now, with players only playing 2 or 3 years, you're not going to get those numbers anymore, really. I didn't get to watch him play, obviously. You didn't get to watch him play. You were a baby when he was playing.
Right.
But, I mean, you look at film of him and you watch and you read about him. I mean, he was like the Jim Brown of college football in that time.
No question. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to have to go back on YouTube and watch some of those clips again. But, but you look at the averages, even over, 3 or 4, to put those kind of numbers up. And the other thing too, and we always talk about this too, and it's kind of our theme on our podcast, is talking about family. He played with his brothers. They were very competitive. You also look at his relationship with Woody Hayes. Woody Hayes was a competitive guy, but he could turn it off. And it sounds like Archie was the same kind of guy. He could turn it off when he needed to, and he could flip the switch and turn it on when when he was on the field, which is something that a lot of people can't do.
No, they can't, and he definitely could. Well, we're happy you guys were listening to that. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify. If you want, feel free to check out all of our archived episodes on those 2 platforms, as well as the Press Play Podcast Network. If you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, you can do so. Follow me at John_Sabol. Follow the pod at Sabol Brothers.
And you can follow me on Twitter, Scott Sabol, FOX8. And also on my blog, and it's a weather blog that I have. I'm going to put a whole list of all the episodes and links. So if you're on my weather blog, you can check that out. It's called Scott's World of Weather. And if you go up there and you do a search for Sabol Brothers on the baseline, you'll find the link there that has, or the post that has all the different links of all of our episodes, which go back, I think, to last June. So a lot of places to find us. Also, if you have any ideas for a sports story, if you know someone that's involved with sports, it doesn't have to be a player. It can be someone behind the scenes that you go, you know what, this person, there's a great story here, and you want us to get in contact with that person. Hey, check it out. Send us a note. You can send us a note and direct message us on Twitter. You know where to find us. We'd love to interview them if it's possible. So looking for ideas.
Yeah, DMs are open for us. Mm-hmm. We want to go beyond just the X's and O's. We love those human interest stories as well. The sides of stories and people that you don't normally get anywhere, but you can get right here on this podcast. On behalf of Scott and the great Archie Griffin, I'm John Sabol. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll check you guys out next time.